It's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood ones of holly. Suggestions that obliterate to camouflage the folly. Attempted mental robbery, executed sloppily. The paupers see this mockery and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet.
So we, eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful friends, nice to see you tonight. Welcome to the Middle Path, where we aim to strip away the saccharine goo of the new age while also veering far from the fastidiously religious in order to free ourselves from groupthink and cultism, while also finding the truth of our soul and all of the universe right here, right now, in the middle. Tonight I'm going to talk to you guys about surrender and how it is your superpower. And no, I'm not talking about letting go of old pains and old hurts. And we'll talk about the difference between that. So, you know, a lot of people, when I was telling them what I was going to talk about tonight, that was their response. I'm like, yeah, it's good to learn to let go. When I learned to go with the flow, blah, blah, blah. And it's connected and it's very related. But I'm talking about something a bit different. And so I hope that you will come with me on this journey to find out more about that. And maybe share your own experiences that are similar. Because I'm sure many of you know exactly what I'm talking about, despite that it is, you know, that there's the difference that we're talking about here. So, yeah, I'm not, you know, it's like the serenity prayer, I think, is what comes to mind for a lot of people. Like, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that is a beautiful part of letting go and acceptance. But surrender, like true soul level surrender, it's just a bit different. So we're just going to talk about that tonight. It's going to be cool. We definitely want to do both. We want to do both for sure. And they're both practices for each other because they're related, but they're just a bit different. So we're going to talk about that. I don't know where you are and where you're at. Say hello. Say what's up. Leave me a comment. What's up, Parker Hayden in the chat? And I see some people over on Rockfin already, and they have not said hello yet. But if you guys want to say hello, go ahead and do that now. I also... am very excited that Middle Path is a Rockfin exclusive. So if you're on YouTube, those of you who are over there on YouTube, you're going to want to hop over to Rockfin. It's free. It's free to sign up. It's free to watch this episode and most of my episodes. I do have some exclusive content that is there for people who are supporters and subscribers. If you do support or subscribe, then you also get access to everybody else on Rockfin's exclusive content. So that's Sam Tripoli, that's Steve Poikonon of Slow News Day, that's Charlie Robinson of Macroaggressions. I believe Steven Crowder, maybe I'm full of shit. I think maybe Steven Crowder's over there. I'm not sure. There's a lot of people, and more and more coming all the time. So if you do subscribe, you get all of those people's exclusive content, and you don't even have to subscribe or support to get most of our content, because most of us do a lot of free content too. So head over there now. The link is below you if you're on YouTube or Facebook. And if you're already on Rockfin, thank you so much for already being over there. We are going to switch purely to Rockfin in a few moments. But we're just going to jump right on in tonight. Oops. Time to move the OBS portal before we jump in. There we go. So I wanted to start by talking about the word surrender. And you'll see why I am talking about surrender and not letting go or relinquishing control, although they're very similar, because surrender does mean to yield to the power, control, or possession of another upon compulsion or demand. But you don't have to be under compulsion or demand in order to surrender, because it also means, and more importantly, to give up completely or agree to forego. It does say especially in favor of another, and we'll talk about the other that might be the one that we're doing this in favor of. As we go on. But we're not talking about being a prisoner. We're not talking about compulsion or demand. We're more, maybe the last one here is the best version for us. And that's to give oneself over to something such as an influence. And I would add the word completely to that. So that's the version of surrender we're talking about. So we'll just keep that in mind. What's up, Snake Jones? And what's up, Aaron, in the chat on Rockfin? Aaron, thank you so much for your tip. I really appreciate it. You are coming through each and every episode for me, and it is very nice to be supported by you guys in that way, and for you to show your appreciation via tips and otherwise. So thank you so much. Eric Twitty, nice to see you over in the YouTube chat. Hopefully you're going to hop over to Rockfin because we're gonna go quiet on YouTube in a moment. So that's the surrender we're talking about. And we also want to talk about ego, because ego is going to come up too. Because a lot of this surrender that I'm talking about has to do with understanding exactly what your ego is and being able to let go of that, which is nearly impossible. I'm not saying that because I don't have faith in people, or I know that everyone can do it, but we're so practiced in attaching to the ego and holding on to the ego in all of its various manifestations that to let go of all of that completely is very rare. And so the ego is the self, especially as contrasted with another self, or the world. And we're not really talking about the Jungian, view of the ego, the superego, and the id. That's cool. It's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about the ego as our conception of ourself. And we're defining this too, especially so that we can delineate between our ego and our true, actual self, right? The self that we identify with, usually, most of us, most of the time, is the ego. And the other self, the higher self, that most of us have no experience of and no connection to at all, except that it exists, but mostly we ignore it and never connect with it. Most people go their whole lives with literally never connecting with it. So the ego as defined by that, our identity, you could say, right? Our identity is a really, really good word to substitute for ego. So we're going to be dealing with those things, and we're going to talk about how you can surrender that and learn to surrender it and practice it. We're going to do a really cool practice that's going to help us really understand the difference between our ego and our true self, and which will also help us possibly learn how to astral project, or at least lucid dream. It's a really good practice for that. And so that's one of the practices we're going to do today. On Middle Path, we always do at least one practice so that we can get some, more tools for our tool bag in this journey of life. What's up, Gordon Hamill over on Rockfin? Nice to see you as well. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, we're about to go quiet on YouTube and be only on Rockfin. So come on over to Rockfin, rockfin.com/rogueways. And actually, let me just do something. Oh, I don't know if I can. Just find this episode. It should be streaming. It should let you know, so it should be pretty easy. But I also want to remind people that the 1 day of brightness is coming up. And wow, I left my screen really big, didn't I? Let's go over to this side for now. The 1 day of brightness is awesome. It's coming up in 2 weeks and 2 days. 2 weeks from now plus 2 days, it'll be Saturday. And the Saturday the 19th is the day of our event. We have a handful of people already coming. We have a handful of spaces still left. If you are somebody, and I really can't stress enough how this is an awesome event for anybody. It is via Zoom. It's a virtual retreat. So anybody can go anywhere in the world. Even if your time difference is very significantly different, you can also watch this event at a later time. If you have to pop in and out during the day, you can go back and rewatch the parts that you missed. But of course, being present and with us is really cool, because sometimes you can win cool prizes. Last time we gave away a couple sessions for Catherine. Before that, we gave away some Spiro gear, some EMF gear, which is super expensive. And both of those are actually very pricey. And so they're really good gifts. And this time we're going to be giving away sessions with myself and possibly more. And so you could win a free reading, you could win a free guidance session, and I might even do a couple free orgone pendants. So we always like to do a few giveaways too, so you may get even more than you bargained for. But really, everybody gets more than they bargained for in this event, and that's because people go to it thinking, oh, we'll learn a few things and we'll do this and that, and everyone 100% of the time walks away saying it was way more than they expected, and that they got so much out of it so deeply. In the soul level, they connected with themselves, and a lot of healing occurs for people. A lot of times it's just very foundational to your journey. And so whether you're advanced, consider yourself advanced or adept, or whether you're just beginning and have no idea what's going on, everybody fits into this and everybody is welcome. So please come join us. It's so much fun. It's so awesome. And I can't wait to see you there. And now I have been telling you that we're going to turn off the YouTube and turn off the Facebook, and so we're only going to be on Rockfin right now. I will share the link with you in the chat. over on YouTube so that you know where to go, even though the link's right below you. So hopefully you are all going to come over. There's a handful of you over there still that haven't hopped to Rockfin, so just click that link and come over. It's free again, so we'll see you there. Middle Path every week is just on Rockfin, and I like to do these intros just so people remember that it's over there and that I invite you to come hang out with us there. We've got a bunch of people in the chat over there, so it's a fun time. And if you're enjoying this, share it. Invite other people. Get people to come and join us and learn some things too. Otherwise, Eric Twitty, Stephanie Martin, and Parker Hayden, and all the other people who haven't commented yet on YouTube, I will see you over on Rockfin. Bye-bye. All right, and now it is just us in the Rockfin family, and so we're going to jump into the meat of things. And we're just going to get right into the practice, actually, because I think that that's really important. I always like to have a little visual, although it's a little bit distracting. Let me just fix this. Let me just do that. So don't necessarily look at this, but it's almost like a reminder for me that we're doing a practice now. And it's pretty cool. And it actually has a relation to what we're doing. So the practice we're doing today is one that I learned maybe like 5 years ago. And it's way more powerful than you might think. Like, truly, it's, especially the first time you're doing it, you might be like, what, this is, like, what? But the more you do it, the more you're like, oh my God, yes, this is it. And this practice literally helps you understand, again, the difference between your ego self, your identity self, the physical part of you, and your real true self, which actually is a completely different thing than you may be used to or may have ever experienced. What's up, Jeff, in the chat? Glad you made it. Glad you're here for this. It's going to be a really good practice. And again, as always, if there's any part of this you don't feel comfortable with, don't do it. We're all protected. You know you're protected. There's nothing in this where we're going to be like inviting in anything. Nope. Just sitting with ourselves, learning about ourselves, and experiencing various aspects of our ability to perceive. And so very, very simple. You can close your mind. that would also be helpful at some point of this, but you're going to close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so. For me, that's just a lot easier for me to be in my body. When my eyes are open, my attention is going all over the place to everything I'm looking at, and that might be true for you too. And so just closing our eyes can just be really good to just bring us right into our body. You can even feel it right away when you do it. And when you do this, of course, it's best if your mind is not wandering. You know, if you're not thinking about what you're going to do tomorrow or what's, coming before and after this, you should try to be just really present right here, right now with us. And part of what can help to do that is if you follow your breath. So you're in your head, like it's like your eyes, your inner eyes are in the middle of your head, or maybe they're somewhere else in the middle of your body, but you're inside of yourself conceptually. And when you breathe in, you just like follow that breath all the way down your esophagus, all the way into your lungs. Your lungs are expanding. It's blowing out your belly instead of your chest, bulging out your belly. You're like inhaling like all the way down to your butt, and then follow the breath back out. Breathe deep, not forcefully. You don't need to push your belly out. Just breathe down into the bottom of your lungs. Expand your belly gently. You're inside your body. Follow the breath back out when you breathe out. And every breath, you can kind of follow that in and out at any time in this practice. But it's really nice to start any practice with something like that, where you bring your inner vision into your body and you just feel a few breaths, follow a few breaths. There's a lot you can do with that, but to just start with that is nice because it just brings you right back in, right? And now we're just going to consider, while we're in here, we're in our body, and we're going to consider the subject of our entire beingness, the subject of our being. You think about the subject is the thing doing the experiencing, the thing viewing, the thing perceiving everything that goes on in your entire life. This is the subject of your being. It's not this body, right? That's not what's doing all of the awareness of everything that your body is doing. So it's not your body. It's separate from your body, actually. They're intimately connected. But what's the actual subject? Who is doing the experiencing. Just sit in your mind and just think of that. Who is it? Where are they? Where are you? It's not in your thoughts. It's not in your mind. Your thoughts can be going all the time without you even being aware. Your thoughts are all kinds of things. Some of them might not even be coming from you. They're just things that go through your mind. All kinds of thoughts. That's not you. That's not the subject. Where is the subject? Who is the subject? Who and what is doing all of this? Is it our feeling and our emotion? We feel it in our heart or somewhere else in our body? Is that the subject? Is that who and what is doing the perceiving and the awareness of everything? It's not that. That's another tool. That is not the subject. That is not the being. That is not the experiencer. In fact, it's often nothing that we are consciously aware of. So what is it and where is it? It's everywhere. It's all around us. It's through us. It's within every molecule of our body. Our awareness is still here in the center of our body, following our breath. And this subject, this beingness, this awareness, this perceiver of everything is in every single cell, but it's not the cell. It's around our entire body, but it's not that space either. It's in every space in between all of the cells and in between all of the things in our body and in our mind. It's in the spaces even, but it's not those spaces. It's in every density and every emptiness in our body, within and around every thought, but not the thought itself. Within and around every breath, but not the breath itself. Within, throughout, and around our body, but not our body or the space around our body. It's seeing and observing everything we think, everything we say, everything we do, and everything we feel, but it is none of those things. That's the subject. That's the actual being. That's the awareness and the experiencer of all the things we just went through. So we know it's somewhere, but where is it? You're breathing, you're in your body, you're feeling that flow of energy through your body. And now we're going to consider, what is the object? What is the object that the subject is experiencing? The object is our body. The object is every cell. The object is every breath. The object is every thought. It's every movement. It's every word we utter, every action, every desire, every urge, every emotion. All of that is the object. It's objective. It's a thing. It is not the being. It is not the subject. We breathe into this. This is our tool. This is the tool with which we work. Aware and conscious, and so very sure and centered of itself. This is where ego lives. It's not bad. Ego is not bad. Ego is good or neutral. There's sometimes bad. It's all of these things because it is a tool as well. These are the objects that the subject uses and that the subject experiences. If we feed our ego too much, it's destructive, and we forget the subject that observes from beyond. But if we feed it too little, it's destructive because our subjective tool dies. The object of our subject dies. So we love this object, this body, these thoughts, these feelings that we probably over-identify with. We breathe into it and we honor it. It is a great, beautiful tool. It is perfect for what we are doing. Its very objectness is what makes it perfect. So we know our subject is something that experiences and knows and it is aware of all of this. We know all of this, our body, our thoughts, our feelings, all of that is the subject. So where is all of this? Where are we? Where's the location? We considered the subject, we considered the object, and now we're considering the location. Where are we? You may think that's a silly question. You're breathing into your body. You're sitting in a room or a car or outside somewhere, and you're like, I'm right here. And you are. And you breathe into that, and you're right there. You're in that room. You're in that house. You're in that space that surrounds you, your physical body. We're also on this plane or this space called Earth. And that is perhaps within this ocean called space. Perhaps within the Milky Way galaxy of the location that we call the universe. This is our current location. But more than all of that physicality, we're on the plane of existence and consciousness that we call awake. You're breathing into your body, the object. You're experiencing it as the subject. And you know that where you really are is in this conscious awareness state called awake. We could be dreaming at a different time. That's a different location. That's not the location we're in right now. We could be astrally projecting at a different time, and that is a different location. That's not the location we're in right now. In either of those states of being, we could be sitting in this same chair or standing on this same grass or wherever it is you are, but it would be a different location. It could look exactly the same, but you know it's a different location. We could be in a million types of spaces with our consciousness, which is the object. But we are in this location, right here, right now, awake and aware in the physical dimension. Just stay centered in your body, knowing that you're subjectively experiencing and aware of this object that is your body and your feelings and your thoughts, and that you're here in this space, this location, which is awake and aware in this third dimensional plane, in this place we call Earth. And sit and hold all three in your mind at once. That ultimate consciousness of you that is almost never touched. It's almost never holding our space with us. It's often disconnected and forgotten all around and throughout everything you generally identify as you. Waiting for you to come into this much awareness even. Just where you are right now, just knowing, just remembering that it exists separately from what you usually identify with. It's waiting for you to come into even this much awareness. It's excited. While the being you do identify with, the body, the thoughts, the mind, the feelings and the emotions, the movements, the actions, the accomplishments that are now sitting or lying or driving or doing whatever your body and ego are doing right now. And the location, right here in your space, on Earth, awake and aware, through countless dimensions exists and could be the space you occupy. This is the one you're in right now. Breathe into all three awarenesses at once. Come back to your heart center. Breathe into that space with the intention that you will often bring your awareness back to subject, object, and location whenever you can. Thank your truest and highest self that you truly are, your actual subject, the real you, for constantly holding space and connection to you, even in our egoistic disconnection. Thank your body and your mind and your emotional bodies for doing their job in service to that true self as the object that they are, as the good tool of the ego. And thank the space for existing for you to practice and learn and grow within. And if you are closing your eyes, you can open them again. And you can just reflect for a minute on this little exercise. I started doing this and I thought this is probably a big waste of time. And boy, was I wrong. It's actually incredibly, the potentiality in this simple exercise to awaken you to a real experience of your truest self is, it can't be overstated. And you can make this a lot quicker than what we just did, although I encourage you to take time at first if you're going to pick up this practice. I encourage you to take time with it every single day, literally. and spend about as much time as we just did, which I'm guessing was like 5 minutes or something. I don't really know. and really get into it like we did, because you really want to be centered when you do it. You want to be really in your body, in yourself, in your space. And especially the difference between subject and object, you want to really start to feel out with your ability to experience all your senses. And especially the location. Because again, when you get in this habit, if you're in this habit and you start doing it just like we just did, a little bit longer and more drawn out, and then eventually you can shorten it, and throughout the day, maybe 40 times a day, you're going to sit and ask yourself, what is the subject? Oh yeah, that's my higher self. I barely acknowledge it. I almost only identify with my brain and my heart and my body, you know? And then what's the object? Oh, it's my brain and my heart and my body, my thoughts, my feelings, everything I do. And that is not who I am. It's not what I am. And remind yourself of that. And then location, where am I? I'm in 3-dimensional physical space here in this room, awake and aware, that level of consciousness, that dimension. And if you do that 40 times a day, eventually, then it turns out that when you're dreaming, you stop and you go, what's the subject? And then you, whoa. Now you can actually experience it much more directly in those spaces often, right? Or what's my location? Oh yeah, I'm dreaming. Well, now I'm lucid. Now I can do anything. So again, super profound actually, if you can practice it frequently. And like I said, you can get real quick. Subject, object, location. SOUL is your little acronym, right? SOL, like the sun. And what do you know? The sun is a really good symbol for our awakened consciousness when we really do experience our higher self. And I'll tell you right now, how many times I've experienced that in my life after years and years of practice and teachings and shamans and like all kinds of stuff that's like beyond what a lot of people may ever understand that I've gone through. I mean, not that they don't understand it themselves, but, as far as I know, also beyond what a lot of people experience. Maybe 3 times. Once that was very much, very, very, very deep and profound. And a couple other times that were close. So it's rare. It's pretty rare. But imagine instead of being reduced to this ego and the background consciousness that like people are barely aware of, that's our true self. Imagine truly being that higher self, truly being that self that I've only even glimpsed or experienced after all this practice so fully once and partially a couple times. Imagine being that so fully that you forget that your body is even a physical thing, or you know what I mean, that you forget to like identify even with it. It's literally just a tool that your awareness can be present with and therefore control. And that level of being and awareness, that is the level of surrender that we're talking about today. That's true surrender. When you can be that being and not this. And I'm going to tell you, like, it's very different than what you might think. It does not... It's so different from what you might think that I, as an author, have almost no language with which to even describe it. It's very hard to explain. But imagine if you could be that all the time. It'd be insane. I imagine this is what we call ascended masters, or whatever we want to call these, bodhisattvas and all this sort of stuff. That's the level of surrender that is our true superpower. I mean, I say a lot of things are our superpowers over the years, and I really mean that they're these incredible skills and abilities that we have that can unlock some just truly transformational changes in ourselves and our lives. But this is like the superpower of all superpowers. Even to have the one experience deeply and profoundly and truly understand it and be present in it, that changes your entire world. No part of you, this is like the true ego death. No part of you can fear anything ever again, really. Momentarily, yeah, because you get stuck in your ego momentarily and like, oh my God, my body might get hurt. And that's not bad. It's okay. But like at the highest level, you're like, yeah, what? Like I've been there before and I'll go there again. And it is the best thing. I'm actually super excited about that. I'll also throw out there before we get deeper into this that hemisync is something that people Oh, by the way, I don't think of this as lower nature and higher nature at all. But if you just want to think of, our physical body and our mental body and our emotional body, which they're here calling the astral body, this is not a perfect image, and I maybe shouldn't have even used it. But anyways, I'm just saying, the things that we tend to identify with, you could think of as like the ego, and the things that are beyond that, calling it the Buddhic body and the Atmic body, like that makes a lot of sense to me, having experienced just momentary awareness of these things. And they're very different from our physical body and our emotions and minds. So it's just a quick image for that. But hemisync, a lot of people don't like. A lot of people in the conspiracy world don't like that Robert Monroe is working with the CIA. As we know, the CIA will work with anybody that can help them get to their end goals, and not everyone has the same distrust and hatred of them that we do. And so I don't distrust Robert Monroe just because of that. I understand why he would want to share this with anybody in the whole world, especially in hopes that the CIA would use it regularly. It would be pretty awesome if you could get people to really experience their true soul and highest self on a regular basis in order to transform the world. The world wouldn't be able to resist transforming if everybody was in touch with this. But I do want to share that my deepest experience of my true subject self, my higher self, that is above and beyond any of the things I had ever identified with before, was using hemisync. And so it is like a shortcut, if you want to think of it that way. It's at the very least a very good tool. And I don't care if you use it or not. If you don't trust it, that's totally fine. I get it. But if you are going to use it and try this super effective methodology, then I really suggest you get it from hemisync itself, because if you go on YouTube and listen to these, you have no idea what other patterns are inserted, or how it's tampered with, and especially the sound quality isn't the same. You have to get the actual FLAC files, which is like lossless something. It's like a really good sound file, in order to really experience it. These are so fine-tuned that every single sound and the timing of every single sound at every single level is exactly calibrated to activate the sides of your brain in a very specific way. So you want to fork over the dough and get the actual product itself. And so I'll just say that. But when I had this experience with hemisync, I can't emphasize enough how absolutely shocking it was. I mean, I had no previous experience that could even compare. Even having had out-of-body experiences, and having had lucid dreams, and having had shamanic experiences and spiritual experiences and entity experiences, and I could go on and on. This moment was far beyond and different from any of those, in ways that I literally don't even know how to describe to you. Except that it was as though I had not left my body, not changed my awareness at all, except to expand and go beyond. And it was as though I was this very large being looking down at myself, not out of my body. I was still me in my body. I had not gone out of body. But I was also this other being that really felt like what maybe a Buddha feels like, if I could be so bold as to claim that. Looking at myself, and as I had that awareness, that level of myself was shocked to realize that I had finally become aware of it, and it startled, and that startled me back into my egoic self, which is not bad. I'm so grateful for the experience. That's as close as I can come to describing it, and it doesn't describe it, so there's that. So that's hemisync, or that's what could possibly happen for you with hemisync if you were going to try. I don't know if this happens for everyone or not. That's just what happened for me. So yeah, all of you out there listening, maybe get hemisync, but get the real stuff. So let's talk about the difference between this level of surrender that I'm talking about, because truly, if you remember what I just said, once I became aware and was sort of shocked, that was not really surrender, and I believe that's why I went back to this level of awareness, this level of identification. But that level of surrender is very different from letting go of things. Although that is a level of surrender, and it is super good, and it's true. what this quote is saying. The truth is, unless you let go, unless you forgive yourself, unless you forgive the situation and other people, I'll add, and unless you realize that the situation is over, you cannot move forward. And that's true. And this is a good reason why you do need to practice this level of letting go, this level of, moving on, basically, not getting stuck in things, not over identifying with moments, people, or whatever, especially if they're gone past. Like, letting go of that is a very good level. Like, a lot of people don't even get there. It's a super good practice. I'm not talking down about it. I'm not saying anything. I'm saying everyone should learn this, and it's great. It's great medicine. It's very good for us. But you can start to see like how that's different from what we're talking about, right? So it's super beneficial, and we should practice it, especially letting go of old pains and suffering. They hold us down. They keep us trapped in that moment way back there. They don't do anybody any good. Your ego has over attached and identified with this thing because it thinks that if it doesn't, it will die. It makes sense that we did it. It makes sense that we have trauma. But we have to let go of these old pains and sufferings. And because that is releasing grudges, releasing and forgiving and doing all this, the ego does die a bit. So it is still a version and a level of ego death. It's great, right? And when we say die, it's not dying. What it really is it's coming back into balance. Because our ego should protect us and keep our tool, our object, safe and working well. And so to do that, it overreacts sometimes. We have to let that go. And that is a bit of ego death. I really hate calling it that. But if I don't, no one will know what I mean, I think. Ego release, whatever. Ego healing, ego balancing. It's a bit of ego death there. Letting go of the people and the places and the situations that no longer serve us. If you stop in your life and you look around, you're like, wow, these people are assholes. They don't even care about me. I'm not fucking hanging out with these people anymore. Like, I'm not going to give them my time and my energy anymore. That's great. This is a very healing thing. It's a very self-affirming thing. Both egoic and true self-affirming. You're protecting yourself on all levels. And that's a little bit of an ego death too. Your ego has to release like, oh, this is who I am. These are my people. This is how I identify what I am. I am part of this group. I am part of these people. I am the person who does this thing. You're letting go of your ego there too. It's a little bit of ego death. It makes sense, right? When I left teaching, it was very difficult for me because my ego for decades had been all wrapped up in being a teacher. I'm a teacher. This is what I do. And the virtue I attributed to myself. I'm good because I'm a teacher and I'm helping the world. All of that was part of my ego, and to let go of that was hard. So letting go of these situations, letting go of these people, and sometimes it's I let go of my partner at that time, and that was really hard. I really loved this person. There was no pain or trauma between. There was no negativity between us. That's hard to do too. It's even harder than letting go of the people who are treating you like shit, right? Especially because I was my ego. This is the person I'm with. This is who I am. I'm the person who is partners with this person. All of that had to be let go. That's a little bit of ego death, right? And we're still just talking about the level of surrender that is just letting go and moving on from things that don't really serve you. And this is not even the real surrender that we're going to get to. These are just the examples of those things that we all need to practice, and that are our little versions of this, or little versions of letting go of our ego and our attachment. And letting go also of forcing situations. I am gonna do this. No matter what, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna make it happen. It's gonna rip me apart. I'm gonna make it happen. Most of the time, if you're forcing something that hard, it's not the same as I'm gonna do this. I feel great about it. It's gonna take a lot of work and effort, but I'm gonna do it anyway. It's not the same, right? This is forcing. This person's gonna do that, and I'm gonna do this, and this is how it's gonna be. Even if it's not flowing easily, I'm going to force it. That level of letting go is also very important, right? I have a friend so dear to me. I love her so much. She disappeared. I'm trying to find her. I'm trying to force it. I'm calling all these people. I'm trying to find her. I can't find her. It's driving me crazy. I can't find her. And then I see her post a picture on Facebook of herself and this person. I'm like, what the hell? You found that person, but you won't let me find you. And I just had to remember, oh yeah, this is one of those times where I'm trying to force something, and this is not, I'm attached to, I'm the person who is friends with this person. I'm the person who is so deeply friends with this person that I can find them and be friends with them again. No, I'm not. Let go of that. That's a little bit of ego death. right? Letting go of the situation. So those are all just the types of things that we should do daily, on a day-to-day basis, all of the time. We should be able to let go of old pain and suffering. We should be able to let go of the people and places and situations that don't serve us anymore. And we should be able to let go of forcing things and making it happen how we want. And all of those are little versions of ego death that are very good to practice and very good for us. They're very good for our object. They're very good for our subject. They're all little preparations for the big surrender. That's really hard to do. And all of them serve you in your highest path. So that's good. It's good to practice. But the bigger surrender, it's a little bit harder. But it's also more rewarding. You know, and maybe you guys have experienced things similar to this, and I'd love to hear about it. So tell me in the comments or whatever, and I'll be checking. So if you want me to read any of them out loud for other people, I would love to share those too. But, you know, I once found myself in a river. It was so dumb. It was a very calm river at first. Calm, lazy flow we were going to do. We all had inner tubes. They're just crappy little inner tubes, not like those real inner tubes that are from the inner part of a tire, but just like the little ones you buy at like the store or whatever, and some floaties and stuff. And we were just going to float. We were going to float for like many miles actually, and end up at this place and get out like you float. So I was floating in this river with everybody, and I love being in the water. I actually don't like floating very much because I'd rather be in the water. So when somebody's inner tube broke, like halfway through, less than halfway through, I was like, sure, yeah, have my inner tube, I'll swim. Because they weren't a very good swimmer and they were kind of scared. And I was like, I am at home in the water. So it's perfect for me. It's a good excuse to not float, right? So I got in the water and I'm swimming along, and it's great and it's fine. It's beautiful. I'm like way happier because I'm floating along in the river. And then it gets a little fast, but I'm like, well, it's still fun. And then it gets a little fast. So it's like I'm back here in this part that's calm. And then things got picked up a bit more, and it was a bit fast. And then I realized, I looked up ahead around this turn and I saw white water, and I freaked out, and I started scrambling and I started swimming. I was trying to swim to the side and I couldn't swim out of the current, and I was trying to do all this stuff. And I was like breathing really hard, like I couldn't catch my breath because I was starting to I'm gonna die. Like I'm gonna go into those whitewater rapids and I'm going to die. And I can't really explain, but this is one of those little times where I experienced this higher self much more directly, but not like I was explaining with him, I think. I wasn't even really fully aware that this was what was going on until afterwards when I reflected. But something started telling me what to do, right? Something started saying, relax, like just stop scrambling. Okay. And then I did. I was like, okay. And then, now put your right hand down right now. And I put my right hand down. I caught a rock. And it's like, now reach your left hand over here. And I did it. And I caught another rock. Now put your left foot here. And I found a foothold. Now do this. Now do that. And I slowly, with each step, I went closer and closer to the whitewater. But with each step, I got further and further out to the edges. And was eventually able to get out of the river. This is a minor moment it's a major type of surrender. It's not the letting go that we were talking about before, right? But it's a major level of it, but it's a minor version of it. It's a minor version of the major level of surrender, because I had to, my mind, my ego in my body was telling me, you have to like frantically move in order to get out, in order to not get in that white water and not die. But my true self, my highest self, because I could surrender to that and allow it to come through me and tell me what to do and direct my body and my emotions, knew exactly what to do very calmly. And I'm not saying the calmness was the thing that was the surrender, right? Because if my higher self, if I surrendered to my higher self and it was telling me like quickly move this way, then I would have quickly moved that way, right? So it's not the calm or the quick, it's the surrender to that. That voice did not make sense. To slowly just trust and move one thing at a time did not match my brain and my ego's idea of how to survive this. But it worked much better because I was able to surrender to that and say, okay, I feel like I'm going to die if I do that, but I'll do it. I trust. Right? So that's one level. You can kind of feel it. You can feel the difference between being in your egoic object and not aligning with your subject and trying to get out of a situation like that, and then surrendering to that subject who knows everything, and knows exactly what you should do, and letting that be your guide instead of your ego. It's a very different thing, right? That's the level of surrender we're talking about here. Another example, way scarier actually. I've told this story before, you may know. I'll tell it again in a moment, but first I want to see. Snake Jones is talking about his level of surrender, giving up sobriety on a new moon ceremony, a sacrifice of the most important thing I had. Yeah, that's another level, right? We get attached to the identity. I'm sober. This is who I am. My object identifies as sober. So that's what I am. So to let go of that in order to take part in the ceremony, that is very different. That is a level of surrender, right? That is totally in line with what we're talking about. Gordon says, that's how I found the owls. I really feel like I truly connected with them because I was in that state of ego separation that I was able to really connect. They truly were my guardians in that state. Yeah. Owls are powerful too. And we do, right? That's actually true of all of our connection with animals, with plants, when we're really having these conversations with like the moon, the clouds, the wind, any aspect of being that we're not traditionally told we should be talking with and communicating with. All of those require a bit of ego release, right? Ego death, a little bit of surrender, because to trust that you are actually having this conversation is a bit of a detachment from your objective self, your object self. But this is another example of a level of surrender. I was at a bar and a man came up and like really groped me. It was disgusting. And I'm me, you know, my ego self took over, and this is how I respond in 100% of those situations so far in my life. I turned around and punched him in the face as hard as I could. With I didn't wait to see who or what it was or anything. I felt someone like grabbing fully my buttocks and even my vaginal area. It's so gross to just like walk up to a stranger and do that. So I instantly just turned around and punched. I'm like pretty strong. I punch pretty well. I've been taught. So I'm not just like, meh. I've like punched him in the face. And that's one of the scariest moments of the night was the look on his face when I punched him. It was not, oh shit, what have I done? Or, oh my bad. Or even like, oh fuck you, I'm going to fight you back. It was a look of, ooh, yeah, that's hot. And I was like, shit, that did not work. Like, this person is still up in my face. I, like, told him off whatever he left. I thought that was the end of it. I was leaving later, probably, honestly, like an hour later. It had been a while. And I was walking out the front door. And literally, as I stepped out the front door, someone came up behind me and grabbed me from behind. And I assumed, as everybody would probably assume in this situation, that it must be a friend. You know, when friends come up behind you and grab you, which I think is fucked up, but whatever, it happens sometimes, right? So I just assumed it was that. And so at first I was laughing. I was like, haha, who is it? And I was trying to turn around and see who it was, but they wouldn't let me turn around. So then I started saying, well, why won't they let me turn around? Like, what the hell? And then, like, I realized I couldn't even move. I was like struggling and I couldn't even get out. And then I realized they were taking me away from the front door. And then I realized they were going to keep taking me away, whoever this was that I didn't know who it was and I couldn't see or do anything about. I looked over and saw this group of people standing there and I said, hey, help me. I don't even know who this is. And he said, don't worry, that's my girlfriend. We do this all the time. And 100% of those people just laughed and said, whatever. I started crying at this point because now I'm realizing, like, he'll say that and he'll do this. Like, he absolutely means me great harm. Who knows what level of harm and for how long it would last. And so then I'm really, especially my object, my egoic self is, like, freaking out, right? I'm going to die. This guy's going to kill me. Perhaps rape me torturously, slowly for many years. Who the fuck knows? And so struggling as hard as I can. I mean, like, all the adrenaline in my body, because I am positive if I don't get away from him, I'm going to die. So if you've ever been in a situation where you're positive you're going to die, you know what I mean. Just full adrenaline, full strength, not even a budge. I couldn't even barely get away. Years later, I learned that to struggle actually gives them strength. And I did a whole show about this, actually. The struggle is actually part of what keeps the problem going, but in so many ways. And it's true on the physical as well. So I'm struggling, I can't get away. And again, my egoic self is not going to stop fighting, not going to stop struggling, which is never going to work, but I don't know that. But again, this memory actually of an Oprah episode I had seen, like, who knows, 20 years before, somehow popped into my brain with that same presence and that same voice that had been there in the river that said, stop moving and go dead weight. Just dead weight. And I will remind you that if you've never gone dead weight, it's actually really hard. And this is really interesting because it's the exact same in the physical, going dead, becoming a dead weight. It's the exact same like tension between that and your egoic self as it is to do it on the spiritual level. It's exactly the same because your object self knows for sure if you let go that completely, you will die. You are no longer your ego. And it's kind of true. Your ego will die a bit. It will come back into balance, rather, as we want to start saying. So anyways, try it sometimes if you want. It's going to hurt because if you actually become a dead weight, you're going to smash into the floor and your neck's going to flop and like who knows what's going to happen to you. If you ever want to try, it's very difficult. So I knew as soon as this voice told me you have to stop moving, you have to become a dead weight, that I had to do that. But I also knew that I'd have one chance because if I became a dead weight and I didn't fully go dead weight, that he wouldn't fully drop me and that I wouldn't be free, and then he'd be ready for that and he would be waiting, right? So I had one chance to do it absolutely right. And so I asked that higher being, that higher level of me, please help me release fully, full, complete surrender on every level. I'm not even going to think about it. I'm going to go way deep inside and I'm just going to let my body go limp. And I'm going to come back out when I feel myself hitting the ground. And I was able to do it. And thank God I was, because that's when he dropped me. And we were far from people at this point. We were like halfway down this block. And then I was able to run. And the rest is a story for another day that you may have heard on other episodes. But I got away. I got away. He chased me. I got away again. But I got away. And I got away because of that moment of surrender. If I didn't trust my true self, the subject, the real awareness and experiencer of everything that happens, if I didn't trust that enough, or if I didn't surrender completely, I would not have gotten away. I would be dead. I would not be here. And here I am. And this is the power of surrender. And I'm not just saying that you should do this in an abduction situation. I'm saying that level of completely letting go, and vacating isn't the right word because you're still fully present, especially the real you is extra present. But it feels like vacating because our ego wants so badly to keep holding on because our ego is sure that it's the only thing, even though it's not. It's very much out of balance. That level of surrender. Another, and this is even more indicative of the type of magic, if you want to call it that, or spiritual power that you can have when you really learn this and you can really do it. And this and the next example are both much more on the spiritual level of things. But they're the exact same level of surrender. So I had this dog. I tried to find a dog that looked more like her, but she was a pit bull and she was very vicious when she saw other dogs. She's super calm, cute, little, like, lovey, my little baby. We snuggled. She's great. But if another dog came into the world anywhere that she could perceive, it was instant, I will fucking kill you. I will rip your fucking face off and I will kill you. There was no, like, I'm just going to dominate you. Like, she would try to rip their throats out. She would try to kill them. She was very vicious when it came to other dogs. So we knew, and we never, ever, ever had a situation in which we would introduce her to another dog. And if we did, we actually did once, and it was actually very successful, but we did it very measured, and it took like 7 hours of an entire day to just get her and this other dog to be calm next to each other, which then they became best friends, and it was really lovely to see. But that's another story for another day too. In the meantime, anytime she saw any dog, she would just kill it. So I lived on a river. Again, it was a river. And I didn't realize yet when we got her that people floated this river. So people would float this river, and she's fine with people. That was cool. And my experience, I've never floated with a dog, so I didn't even consider it. But one day, people floated in front of our house, and I saw them and waved. And then I saw their dog, and then I saw another one of their dogs come out of like the edge of the property to, you know, where I could see the river first, the first place I could see the river to the edge of the property. And I instantly was like, oh, fuck. Because this is now going to happen with my dog on my property. And now I'm going to be in massive trouble. My dog's going to get put down. All of this goes through my mind in a second. My dog still hasn't noticed yet because she's never yet seen a dog appear from the river. So she's not expecting it. She's not looking for it. So I think maybe I can get close enough to her, grab her and just drag her inside, and she won't even see the dogs and it'll be okay. And then as I'm almost getting to her, her head snaps and she sees them and she fucking takes off. And she's fast. You've seen a pit bull run, I'm sure. They're hella fast. So there's no chance I could have ever caught her. I go running after her anyway. My egoic object self demands that I do because my egoic object self knows that that dog's going to die and I'm going to be in trouble. My dog's going to take, and all the things I already told you went through my mind. I know the stakes, and so I need to stop this. And I go chasing after her down the river, screaming, Sammy! Like, please stop. These dogs are also fast, and they're running away, which smart dogs. Like, she will kill you. So good job, dogs. They're running away, but she's gaining on them because she's her. She's a fucking muscle made of speed, and she knows how to kill. And so she's gaining on them and gaining on them. And again, this voice. I'm running like upriver to try, even though I know it's pointless. And then this presence. It's not really a voice. I keep saying it's a voice. It's much more like this presence, and this awareness like comes, and it comes so quick, and in an instant I realize there is literally nothing I can do except stop and try to let my true self and my real being, not even try is the wrong word, because as soon as you're directing it and trying, you're not surrendering it and it's not working. That's your egoic object self. You have to let the subject take over. And to do that, it is like you are dying. Your ego feels as though it is dying and that this is the wrong choice. It can't be right, but it actually is. And I stop and I let go of my mind, my heart, my body. I go limp and I just let myself. It's almost like what someone might describe possession as being like, except it's the opposite because it's full presence. The real you is finally and fully in control is not even the right word. Just present and able to be. And that presence fully came into presence and somehow told Sammy, you have to stop or you will die. And Sammy heard it and stopped right at that moment and turned and looked back at me. And that doesn't make sense. That is not who she is. That has never happened before then or after then. But she stopped instantly. As soon as I did it, I just stopped and I released. I surrendered completely to my highest self, not knowing that it was my highest self, not even really understanding what I was doing, just knowing it was the only thing and the thing that would work, and did it. And she stopped and she turned around and she looked at me. And I stayed in that long enough to send her this like feeling of love. Like, just, I love you, just come back. And she was like half a mile away. Like, they were way up the river at this point. And she just came back. She just stopped and she came back. It's interesting too, like the tension in those moments, right? Because I knew even though I had done this surrender and it worked and she heard it or felt it or whatever it is that happens and she stopped and turned around, I knew if I left that space and called or tried to like do anything again and be my object self again, that it would have broken and she would have continued going after them. So I had to stay in it, and I could feel that tension. I could feel the egoic object self trying to come back and take control, and and I knew that would not work, and I was able to stay in that moment of full surrender. That's a fucking superpower, right? And I'm sure there are people like Catherine and other people that maybe could just do that and just send that message and just be in that much space and presence and whatever to do that, maybe even frequently. But for me, this is like, again, one of the few times that I was like able to really do this and be this. So instructive, because now I've experienced these 3 times of just fully surrendering and letting my real self come into being and not try, because just like Yoda said, there is no try. There is do or do not. And that level of being, there is do or do not. And as soon as you're trying or struggling, your ego again, and it fails. So the last time I want to share with you is a bit much for some people. So if you don't like demons and scariness, then don't listen. Maybe skip ahead a few minutes. But this was the most, really truly, the most, the best test of surrender that I perhaps will ever experience. Because now that I've had this many experiences, and especially the one I'm about to describe and the hemisync one, I really couldn't fail to surrender in the moments where it will work best. But anyways, I'm going to find a way to tell this story as shallowly as possible, because I don't necessarily need everyone to understand all the details. We'll put it this way. There are times when these entities can come through objects like your computer or your phone and fuck with them and change them and have all kinds of very strange things happen through them. And there are times when they can come through animals. You may see an animal suddenly become inhabited by a demon and act very aggressively and dangerously and different than they ever do. And you just know it's not them, especially if you know that animal. And they can also come through people. And when they come through people, and I really mean come through them, like basically it's possession. And again, it's not like the head swiveling around and like vomit fucking flying around or whatever that we see in movies or whatever. But it's, you can feel and you can see and you can sense the difference between every other time you've ever seen this person and this moment right now. And also, in some situations like this one I'm going to talk about, they will directly, usually I'll say actually, especially if you're the focus of their attack, will directly interact with you. So I'm sure there's people now listening who are like, you're schizophrenic, but I'm not. And if I am, then that just means that schizophrenia is being able to interact with other levels of being and entities. But anyway, this entity came through somebody who was in the same house as I was. And they were saying to me things like, I can control this other person and you can't do anything about it. Watch. And then they would tell that person what to do and that person would do it. So this is very terrifying. This is the first time something like that directly, especially through humans, had happened to me. And this other person who they were controlling, I didn't try to affect the person who has, for however they've decided to do this or agreed to do this on whatever level, let this demon come through them. But I did want to help the person who was being controlled by them. And so I finally got that person to leave that room with me, which was very, very hard in ways that, directly I was saying, please come to this other room with me just for 1 minute. Just come with me. I just want to say something. I just want to tell you something. Just come with me. And this other person would be like, nope, come back. And they would go back and I would like get them back again, like almost to the door, like just come with me, just really quick. Like, it's going to be fun. Like I tried all these different ways. Wasn't working. So I finally had them almost out the door. I'm between them and the person who seems to be experiencing possession. And I'm like, just go. And I finally was like, I'm just going to physically push this person into this room. Like, I'm just going to shove them in and just shut the door and just get them detached and just like figure this out, what we're supposed to do or whatever's supposed to happen now. And I'm like pushing, and this person was not being pushed by me. And this presence came back, this higher self, my subject, me, came back present again and said, remember, you've learned this before. Your real self has way more power than you and can do anything. You have to surrender to it. You have to literally give up all your egoic striving, everything that you think you're doing, all of it. All your thoughts, all your feelings, which right now is like terror and like desperation. You have to just let it go And that's what will work. And I'm like, how would that work? I literally am having to use my whole body weight to just keep her from like inching back in, because we're just in the threshold of this doorway, and I just need her to get like beyond this doorway. And so I did it, and I became a dead weight at the same time as letting all of my mental, emotional, and egoic space turn off. And I surrendered to it, and I did not choose to move a muscle or do anything. I just stayed in that place of surrender, and my body just very easily took her. Push isn't even the right way, because now at this point, whatever this force is that we are and can be and can align with and can surrender to at any time, that force is apparently strong enough to even cause this other person to stop struggling so much and just let yourself go into this room. And she did, and she even said and whispered in my ear, I don't know what you're doing, but it's working. So some level of her own presence came back because of my ability to surrender to my true state of being. That is a superpower. This thing, whatever that thing was that was powerful enough to come through a human and all sorts of other objects in the house at the same time and do these manipulations of her, in which she was vacated enough to let it control her for that time, she came back to presence enough just because of me being able to surrender to real me. That's a superpower. That is a superpower. That is more than getting out of a river. It's more than getting away from an abductor. It's more than stopping your dog from killing another dog. That's a superpower. In the face of absolute evil, it succeeds. Easily. It wasn't even a thing. As soon as I surrendered, it was like over. All right, and I want to really say like the completeness of letting go of the ego's insistence that you fight. It's absolute. You can't have any of it left. You can't have any of that. Like, I have to fight. I have to do this. I'm going to do this. This is how I feel. This is what I'm thinking. None of it. You can't have any of it. Right? You're like screaming it internally, and you're like forcing things, and you're trying to like fight, and you can't. To even like be aware of your object self is not surrender. You really just have to surrender to the subject, which is your true self. Subject, object, location. Each of those things I just talked about required me to really go through some sort of like ego death, you know? Like more fully than the type that we were talking about when you have to like let go of certain people or certain situations or stop forcing things. Those are the little ego deaths that are really good practice and really good for us, and we should always strive to do. But these are a bit more, right? Where you really literally your ego is dying. Your ego thinks it's dying at least, but it's coming back into balance. And you just have to release it. You just have to let it come back about. You have to let it go completely and really just be you. It's very, very different from everything that you've ever done. Not you. You may have experienced everything I've just described. I just mean most people. The grand you. Most don't. This is different from what most people are doing. And then I want to be really clear, too, that none of these required that I stop caring or pretend I had no will or had no power. That's not what it is. Right? And I'm not saying that can't be good. Do whatever you want to do. I'm just sharing my experience. But if I would have believed I was powerless, that's egoic too, right? That's still my ego saying, I am this is me, I'm an object, and this is what's important, right? Is that I feel powerless. Like, no, that's still ego. Right? Or that how would I pretend I didn't care? And that's, I deeply care. That's why I was trying to get this person away from this thing. I wasn't able to control or affect me, but it's affecting them, and I'm sure they don't want it, and I just want to help them get away. Of course I care about that. I can't let go of that, right? That's still there. I know I'm powerful. I know that I care. I know what my goal is. I just release the attachment to my egoic self that insists that I do it this way, with this body, with this mind, with these emotions, and fighting like this. You let go of all of that, and your true self can finally come through. Very rarely does it happen because we're so identified with our ego. Super rare. But every single time I did it was the most magical, the most effective I've ever been. I tell people sometimes, perhaps cryptically, that the most powerful magic I ever work is when I'm not trying at all. And this is what I mean. I'm not trying. I'm finally present enough to just do, like Yoda says. It's interesting, too, that there's all of these religions, just as always, that hint at this in various ways. But we always like have to peel away so many levels of understanding to get to that. Because we think that it's talking about other things. Just like when I told people about this show tonight, 100% of people thought I was just talking about being able to let go of things that we don't control, or, you know, the Serenity Prayer, which is great and I love. But it's not what I was going to talk about tonight. But we have to peel away these layers because we think we know what it means. Our ego knows what it means. But our true self knows more fully what it means. So we see it in Christianity, we see it in Buddhism, we see it everywhere we could possibly look. And we can also identify with this state that people describe in meditation, where they describe the emptiness, right? And people may have a hard time understanding what that really means, you know, and people like struggle for it, which is the opposite of what you can do to get there. But how else would be? Because we've only ever been identified with our ego. We've only ever tried, and we've only ever done in order to get something. So of course we think, oh, okay, when I meditate, I have to make my mind empty. You can't make your mind empty. No, you can't. You cannot choose to do that, right? What you can do is become so fully present that you finally remember subject you, real you, true you. The you that watches all of this like it's a separate thing happening, but knows that it's it, but is not in any way identified with it. It's the same as you watching like a tool bench. You're like, yeah, there it is. I can use that. Here's what it's doing. It's not me. It's a thing I do. That level of you. It gives you a glimpse then. So if you can meditate and get into that space, rad. Meditation could help you get closer and closer to that stage, absolutely. But if you're one of the many people who thinks that meditation's goal is to make yourself become that, it cannot happen. But all of these things hint at it, right? Like here's just a real quick search for Jesus and surrendering, right? I just want to see what Jesus has to say about surrendering. And remember, every time I think it seems most obvious to me at this point in my path that every time Jesus is talking about himself or God, his true self or God, he's talking about you. He's talking about subject you, real you, your highest self. That's what he's talking about, right? So when he says, if you would direct your heart right and spread out your hand to him, he's saying if you let your heart understand this true self and reach out to that true self and be that self, like that is the thing. That's what you do, right? I have been crucified with Christ, and it is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. Same thing, right? My ego has been crucified. My attachment to this body and this mind, this feelings, this set of things that I'm doing on earth, I have stopped identifying with that. And now this true self literally lives within me. Again, can you imagine that? If you have these glimpses, if you're me, and maybe you've had many more, and that's awesome. If you're me, you've had these glimpses. I can't even barely imagine what it would be like to always be in that state of being. I can't imagine it. Even having experienced these pretty powerful glimpses and experiences, cannot imagine it. Fully, full time, I believe that's what he's talking about. In the life which I now live, in the flesh I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself up for me. Is that giving up this identity and egoic self for that true self? If anyone wishes to come after me, meaning if you want to do what I do, if you want to be what I am, he must deny himself. He must deny himself. Your self, your identity self, the physical attachment to this set of stuff. You gotta deny it. It's not an act of denial. You're not like, I'm gonna deny myself, and that's gonna do it, right? But it's that concept of like, that's not me. That is not me. You're literally denying yourself. This is me. This version of me that just watches all of it. Anyway, this even, for whoever wishes to save his life will lose it. This even reminds me of the same thing, right? Like I was saying, if I'm fighting in the river, I'm gonna die. If I'm fighting against this guy who's abducting me, I'm gonna die fucking awfully. Like horrifyingly. You know, if I'm fighting this like demon thing and the person they was trying to control, it's not working. Maybe I would die. I don't think I would have died, but you know, who knows what would have happened. But whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. Lose your ego identity. Again, don't kill it. It's not dead. It's a very, very good tool. We have it for a reason, but it comes back into balance so that you can experience your true self. Well, now you have real life. Now you're actually living as a true human. One of the most rare experiences humans have, right? We're not trying to ascend beyond ourselves. We're trying to just be ourselves. That's a real human. Most of us are not real humans. We're much more animalistic. Very attached to ego and identity and self. Just like animals are. Animals aren't bad. I love animals. I'm just saying. It's a different level of consciousness. Right? In Tibetan Buddhism and Jungian ideology, there's a lot of things that talk about this surrender too. And it's the same sort of thing. You have to like peel off the layers of what you thought it meant. And then you see like, oh yeah, it's actually talking about the same thing over and over again. Releasing yourself, releasing your ego, letting go of it, becoming the real you. There's all sorts of levels of this, right? The letting go of people and places that don't serve us and all of that stuff, that's the same thing on a very basic level. It's the first step. Well, it's a great step. We have to keep taking that step all the time. And then eventually you get to the other step. You're like, oh, I literally have to let go of self. All of ego. It's hard to even understand all of ego because it's all we ever are or do, we think. So there was something in this article that I wanted to share. They're talking about letting go of ego dominance. And it's saying this is an uncomfortable process, often accompanied by great resistance. Remember, the resistance actually makes it stronger. You fight and fight and fight against it. You're actually like flowing faster down the river or faster of the guys who carrying you down the street and abducting you's arms. The resistance is giving it power. It's not a nice trite saying. It's not just a metaphor. It's an actual truth. The resistance itself, the fear itself, the depression itself, it's all keeping the ego super strong, super imbalanced, I should say. We are required to let go and open to the unknown. Same thing, right? Surrender. It's only unknown because you're not familiar with it because it's so imbalanced. It's like atrophied. Remember I said that first time I really experienced it, the longest period of awareness with it that I ever had? When I realized that's what I really was and experienced it, I shocked myself out of it because I was so like, holy shit. It's like our real selves are sitting here just staring at us for like eons, like just fucking notice me, just look over here, and we never do, and so they just stop and just stare, just wait listlessly, and like it's atrophied, right? So it's only unknown because we're unfamiliar. It's not actually the like unknown. I don't even know what the unknown is. Right? And we cling to what once felt secure, which is everything we've ever known and done and felt and thought and seen, and everything is our ego. That's what feels secure. We know it so well. It's so overdeveloped. That is all we know. There's this Sufi tale of a man on a quest who finds himself trapped in a huge public bath. The man is alone and knows that if he does not escape, he will die. A parrot suddenly appears and tells him that if he can shoot it with his bow and arrow, he will be free. The man has 3 arrows. He quickly fires the first. The parrot flutters into the air, and the man misses. The man turns to stone from the feet to the waist. He fires the second arrow, misses, and turns to stone up to the shoulders. He has 1 arrow left. What should he do? If he misses a 3rd time, he is dead. This riddle beautifully illustrates the challenge of those times when our conventional egoic strategies fall apart and will actually lead to our demise if we go on. The story ends when the man closes his eyes, says, "God is great," and fires the arrow. This time he hits the parrot and is freed. When faced with no other options, he has to give up something greater than himself to find a different source of resolution. Again, God in this story is not some bearded guy in the sky or some being that actually exists. God is your true self. God is the subject. It's still you. You're not a god. It's this description for this part of yourself, in my estimation. That is what's true. If you read this story, it's exactly like the stories that I just told you of my own experience. And there's a million of them. And it's not like hocus pocus and magic. It's like that real true self of yours is immensely powerful. Close your eyes, you shoot, you hit your target perfectly. You're not even doing it with your egoic self. You're doing it with your true self. So it's a mistake, this article is pointing out, in Buddhism to live with a worldview in which there's nothing greater than ourselves to which you can give up to. Because in the Buddhist worldview, there is no God per se, like that being I was just describing isn't the point. But there is your higher self, your Buddha nature, right? And every single religion and tradition has these exact same lessons. We can see it anywhere we want to look at. Jung even describes it too in his way. So I love this. We must walk a fine line between surrender and engagement. What's that? That's the middle path, right? You can't live fully in your higher self in this place, in this location where you are at right now. You can't live fully as your egoic self in this location. You can't live fully as your higher self. You have to have both present, and sometimes one is better at something than the other. Right? Our egoic self might be way better at like planning and like, okay, I'm going to plant this garden, I'm going to do this thing, and here's the thing, and this is what I'm doing. I don't know. But our higher self is definitely much better at many things as well. So to have a balance between them, like we've been saying, don't kill your ego. Maybe you do have to kill little parts of it. Maybe it's a bit too strong. But bring it back into balance. Let go of some attachment to it, or it to itself, and then find that way to connect and surrender to your highest self. All right. Where are we at over here in the chat? Gordon, thank you so much for the tip. I love it. I love the support. I'm always so grateful for anybody who is supporting. FQ2, I think I know who you are too. Thank you so much for the tip. I really appreciate that as well. Very, very love it. Thank you for everybody who's in the chat talking about all kinds of stuff. My first Oregon pendant came from a demonic manifestation I had to deal with a brother. Yikes. Thank you. People are very much enjoying this show. I appreciate it. Fleeting and soon lost, yes. And hopefully we can connect with our higher self and be present in that level of surrender more and more and more and more, to the point where that is all that is present, and that our ego truly is the tool and the object that it is meant to be if we are full humans. Yes. Yeah, making the unconscious conscious. That's the Jungian view of it, right? Our unconscious self. It's just waiting there. Like, please, please notice me. I'm so powerful. I can help you so much. There's so much of it. All right. Our true power lies in being able to help our ego step down and out of the way in crucial moments. That's our true power. This is our superpower. This is surrender. We're helping our ego feel comfortable enough and assured enough to just release all control, release all doingness, and just be. And in that moment, it's like you have undammed a river, an ocean that just, it's just there now. It can now finally come through, right? The ego is like blocking it out. Again, for a purpose. But here we have this really pretty good graphic where the ego might say, I'm a victim of circumstance. Woe is me, poor me, look at all these things I have to contend with. Your higher self says, I create my own reality. That's actually true. I'm here creating exactly what I need, what I experience, all of it. I'm creating it. right? I'm attracting it. It's here because of me. Where ego says, I live in scarcity, there's never enough. Higher self says, I live in abundance, there's always enough. And you can start doing this with your conscious mind too, and it helps your higher self be more and more present, right? Just tell yourself, I live in abundance. Has there ever been a time in my life? There's been a lot of times where I've had very little, but have I ever not had enough? I've obviously always had enough because here I am. So I will always have enough. And even if I die, that was the moment I was going to die. And I still have enough. I'm still existing. Ego says I'm alive temporarily. It's scary. This is like the worst one. This is the one the psychopath class uses against us the most. You're going to die. You're going to die. You're going to die. We're like, ah! And that all we are is in our ego. Whew, that's a bad one. Right? But our higher self says, I'm alive temporarily. And that's awesome. I came here for this time. I was born, I will die. It's an absolute fact of life, and it's so cool. I've been this before. I've been other things before. It doesn't matter. Ego says, I'm a machine. I'm made of accidental ones and zeros, bits and pieces, accidental chemicals just conglomerating into this physical meat suit that just I so happen to be able to manipulate. Higher self says, I'm an artist. I'm made of infinite energy. I am not this body. This is not my limit. This is a thing I use. Ego says I'm in competition with the world. And higher self says I'm in harmony with the world. I might have to have boundaries. I might have to actually technically compete at sometimes. That can be a thing that we do. It's okay to do that sometimes, right? But to also know in your core of who you are, let your higher self be present enough to really remember and know that you're actually in harmony with the world at your highest level, and that if your highest level can be present at all times, you will always be in harmony with the world. That's a good thing. Ego says it's complicated, but higher self says I'm happy. Even when bad things happen sometimes, it's sad for a time, I go through it, I'm still happy. Overall, my being is happy. I create happiness for myself. So again, ego gets a bad rap. There's a lot of people who think all ego has to be murdered away into nothing, and I'm not of that ilk, right? Always in the middle path. The ego has a purpose. It exists for a reason. It's just way over muscled. I clench my teeth my whole life. I've shattered teeth because I clench so hard. It's really fucked up. but these muscles in my jaw, when a dentist or people touch them, they're like, holy shit, they're over stressed, they're over bulked up, they're overused, over muscled. The ego is like that for all of us. I don't know, I have never met anyone who the ego wasn't overdeveloped in. A lot of cult leaders want to tell you they're not, and I'm sure people exist that it's not overdeveloped in, but I've never met them. It's overdeveloped for all of us. Our higher self is underdeveloped. It's sitting there, it's waiting. It's going to be shocked when you connect with it because you haven't connected in so long, unless you've done it before. And that's your higher self. So bringing these into balance, that's the middle path, right? Connecting to your higher self, really, truly experiencing that, understanding surrender and doing it to the level that you can really understand it, experience it, and know it. You got to bring that into balance to be in the middle, right? You got to let your ego go and find ways to balance the ego in order to be in balance in the middle. This is the middle path. This is what we want. So yes, we want to let that channel open up. We want to let the ego calm down, let go, surrender, so that our channel is open and our true self can really step into this moment and be here now. And that transforms the world with ease. It transforms the world. Things change. Other beings understand suddenly because of your level of presence. You can manipulate material reality. All kinds of, the world is at your command. Just like we just saw with ego versus higher self. I create my own reality is a literal truth when you're in that moment. Nothing can stop it. So if you do find yourself facing the darkness, or rather when you find yourself in battle with forces that can't be understood easily, remember this. Remember, especially if you haven't, and this whole time you've been like, holy shit, what the fuck is she talking about? Especially then, just remember, I'm not trying to scare you. I don't think demons just suddenly come out and attack people most of the time. I'm just saying, that if you ever do find yourself in these moments, where you're like, holy shit, I'm going to die. Or like, oh my God, I can't even fucking understand this. Like, what the fuck do I do? Try it. You're like, oh yeah, I have a higher self. My higher self actually can do anything. I'm going to surrender to that. I'm going to let it be here now so that we can all get through this, you know? But that's easier to do when you have practiced it on the regular and on the little things and little moments. So letting go does become very important. Seeing what doesn't serve you and letting it go is very important. Seeing your old pains and traumas and identifying them and then working to let those go, very important. Doing all of that kind of work. Learning how not to force your will on situations, very important version of letting go. All of those are practices that lead to these moments where you let go more fully and surrender, right? And so you want to do them. Practicing subject, object, location, so just a mini version of that. It's super effective. It's anything you're doing is a habit, right? You've habitually let your ego become overdeveloped. You've habitually identified with your body. You've habitually felt fear and chaos and anger at anything that threatens your ego. All of those things are habits. You can start to change them. Subject, object, location practice that we did at the beginning of this is a really good way to start to train yourself to be like, oh yeah, my body and my thoughts and my emotions and everything I think I am all the time, that's just an object. It's a thing. It is not me. What is me? It's a subject. What is that? Where is it? Like, how do I feel it more? And just even trying to be aware of it, like, helps it come closer into this moment, you know? You're aware of that, just being aware of it, reminding yourself to be aware of it. Go subject, object, location. Write it on your hand. Just start doing it. Put it in your phone to go off every 2 hours. Subject, object, location. Be like, oh yeah, my real self is somewhere everywhere, all around me, in me and around me. My object self is this body and these thoughts and these emotions, and I'm here. I'm here in this place, in this room. It's physical dimension is where I'm at, 3D, whatever you want to call it, here on Earth or whatever, right? And again, like I said, you're doing this regularly enough. Not only are you letting your higher self be like, oh yeah, I am here. They see me. They remember. They know that their ego isn't them. Like, oh yay, this is so great. But you also are in that habit. So if you're dreaming sometime and you're like, okay, what's my object? What's my subject? What's my object? What's my location? Like, oh my God, I'm in the dream. That's my location. Wow. Now you're lucid, right? Or even more can happen. Those practices, letting go, subject, object, location, there's way more intense ways to get deeply in touch with yourself. 2, I just wanted to share at least one practice that most people are very highly capable of doing. Subject, object, location is very, very simple. So don't think that that's it. If you're someone who's like, oh no, I'm like real good with the awareness part, I just need like some other practice that's really going to like help this along, there's lots and lots and lots you can do. I always do also want to warn people, I don't ever want to tell you not to use psychotropic drugs. But I always want to remind people that you don't need that tool in order to do this. And in fact, if you teach yourself to do it without that tool, then you can do it anytime, anywhere, which is much more powerful. So in my opinion, it's better to be able to do this work without those supports. But I will also say there's a lot of good that can come from those types of tools. And so again, I'm not going to tell anyone don't do it. I'm just also going to remind you that if you're not, it's just like we talked about with Chance on those earlier episodes. A lot of these substances are portals. You don't know who grew it. You don't know where it grew. You don't know what all the little micro elements of it are and all the little influences that are in it or the intention with which it was made. And all of those things can affect you as well as other portals you already have open that can become magnified in those states. And a bit like more difficult to defend against. Like, you're always going to be okay. I'm not trying to scare you. You always have your highest self. You always have God or whatever you want to call that there with you, and you're always okay. I just think it's better to do it on your own. You can do it just with you, and that is powerful too. So just a reminder. But remember your superpower when you're facing anything that is dark. Let go of your pride. Let go of your fear. Let go of your tenacity that says that your body and your mind are weapons of choice, and let your super self come through, simply letting go completely, surrendering to it completely and letting it in. And it's so weird because I just saw this today. And I was like, holy shit, that's exactly what I'm talking about tonight. And it's from that movie. I actually don't know which one of the movies this happened in. But, you know, this is Dr. Oh, God. No, I don't even remember his name. You guys, I'm really bad at pop culture. I remember this movie, though, and I remember really liking it. Is it Doctor Strange? Whatever, this guy talking to bald Buddhist lady. And she's saying you cannot beat a river into submission. You have to surrender to its current and use its power as your own. That's even a little bit much, because you're not using it. It is using you, what you usually identify with as you. It is you using what shouldn't be identified as you, but has been for way too long. But you have to surrender to the current, and its power becomes your own, would be even more correct to say. Surrender to the current, and its power becomes your own. Surrender, silence your ego, and your power will rise. It's perfect. It's perfect. I love that all of these movies, every piece of media we can find, while there's much of it that's used to program for an agenda, there's always so much of it that is absolutely right on and very full of truth. Super interesting dichotomy there. So yeah, guys. Be your superpower. Be a superhero. Be really, 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 truly you. You know? Oops. And if you can do that, Doctor Strange, thank you. Yeah, people are like, yeah, it's Doctor Strange. But yeah, you can do anything. It's really beyond what you probably think. And that's why I encourage people to do it. And I know a lot of people are scared, and you don't have to do it. And you don't have to feel like if you're not doing this type of work that there's something wrong with you, or like there's nothing. You will do everything you need to do in exactly the time you need to do it. You're hearing this now because you want to hear it. Your soul wanted to hear it. And so you're here doing it, right? And you will do whatever's next. And maybe you've already done like all of this stuff, and you're just sitting there going like, hell yeah, that's exactly right. Like, and that's rad too. And you and I wanted to have this little reminder for ourselves and celebrate these things that are true, right? So don't feel like, oh, I have to do this. And then like, oh my God, what if like demons happen and whatever? Don't even worry about it. The only reason that happened to me is because my soul chose to be on this path where I'm able to, just fucking kick the fuck out of demons, and that's rad. That's one of the things I do. So, you know, this is a service I provide for people. If you have dark attachments or entities or portals that you've opened and you want them to be gone, and you want to work on creating your own ability to keep those boundaries up and strong, like that's one of the things I do. Come let me know and we'll work it out. But you can always do subject, object, location, do any kind of just being present in yourself, you know, and just sitting in yourself, centering, like noticing your energy and all of that. And then like when you're in that, be like, oh yeah, that's all my ego. That's not even really me. That's not even really me. The real me is just the me that's in pure awareness, pure experiential awareness. And that's it. That's the real me. Bring that attention in while you're meditating, while you're doing other various exercises. Just like the subject, object, location, you can just kind of quickly be like, oh yeah, I'm not my body. I am this other thing that I rarely experience. And just start practicing it, and just start doing it. It's not going to be dangerous for you. It's not. It's just not. You have free will. Nothing else does. You tell shit to get the fuck away, it gets the fuck away. Snake Jones says, I saw my death in a vision. I was an old man, missing an arm, and my face was scarred badly. But my wife was with me and many other people. That's beautiful. These are really powerful experiences, you know. I also had one of my many trips and visions. I say trips, I don't mean on drugs. I mean like I went somewhere. Was also of finding myself as an old person. It was very, very interesting because me then was aware of me now being there. We were both aware of each other, and I was like, whoa, two me's, like this is weird. And then I left. But so apparently, you know, that's maybe just one timeline. Very wary of the future. I do not believe that it is absolutely written in stone yet. So I just kind of look at that as like, it's one of the possibilities, right? Someday when I'm that age and I'm standing in front of a window and like this fucking presence flies up, I'll be like, hey, what's up? I remember you. I remember this. But it's nice. What I was trying to say basically is that it's really cool when you have an experience like that, because it brings back that mortality. You can be friends with your mortality. This is one version of helping your ego to relinquish its over-muscled state, its overdeveloped state. And remember that, like, oh yeah, it's a fleeting passing tool. It is not me. And that is powerful realization, right? I did an episode called I'm Not Dead Yet when this all fucking bullshit pandemic broke out. Because I was like, hey, don't let this fear grab you. Remember, like, even if you do die of a virus, like, that's cool. You're going to die. So who fucking cares? Like, stop reacting out of fear. And that is the same concept, right? That you just have to be like friends with your death. Like, you're going to die. Just fucking accept it. It's just a body and it's not you. Like, whew, let it go. And you can practice that too. And I guess it's intimately related with this, idea of surrender. You go look in the mirror, look yourself in the eyes, and say, I am going to die. You are going to die. Tell yourself that. Imagine it. You're like, yeah, dying, death. I'm going to die. What might it be like? Get close to it. Hug it to dust. Integrate it back into yourself. It helps you remember that you are not this. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are not your body. Those are all tools that you use with which to experience the world, and know yourself, right? And choose. You like experience something, you like touch something, it burns you, like I choose not to touch that again. These are all tools you use in order to be you and be here now. We just are so over-identified with it that we forgot. We forgot who we really are. We forgot what we really are. And who and what we really are is just waiting. It's saying, remember me? I'm over here. Come home. Come home now. And until you go home, until you master the art of little ego's death and bringing little ego back into balance to be really fully balanced and actually much bigger and larger and more capable than it ever was, in order to allow your highest self's birth and presence in this moment, right here, right now, right in the middle. Travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first. Mwah.
Yeah, come on, Rat Kings, baby. It's the rap machine. Yeah, check it. Gray bearded pirate, my motherfucker unknown. Yeah, come on. In the place with my fist up, meaning I resist the bullshit that they feed us and lead us. This is just a part of the process, man. Just watch this, cause this shit's about to get crazy like a mosh pit. We lost it, toss it, let's start it again. Cause now with technology, with smarter men and women, this is the beginning, not the end. And this is the message of hope that I send. Look on your TV, it's a culture of death. They'll keep on lying to the very last breath. We keep on striving and spreading the truth. It's hard to survive in this world for the youth. The door is closed, the old world is dead. Let's have an age of understanding instead. I'll include you and you include me. Let's see what we can build with some positivity. Let's go, you're moving too slow. Let me see your hands if you know what I know. Come on.
Rap like mummy, ain't no dummy in my rhyming. Started flowing freestyling, now they rhyming loud silence. On with the violence, bodies piling with the gray-bearded pirate. On your TV in 4K 3D virtual reality. Casualty of urban warfare. I know but I'm not scared, just prepared and aware. Shining my light through the tunnel of hope. Into the rope, but I'ma give it one more pull. Till the family is full. Take the bull by the horns and lead it to the slaughter. That would be harder and you would be softer. Sometimes I'm a monster and you forever imposter. Which is champagne and lobster. This royalty, the way it was supposed to be. Hopefully the new door opens and the old one closes. With way more focus and growth to mold us. And the truth that they should have told us.
seems it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood wands of holly. Suggestions that a flicker rate to camouflage the folly. Attempted mental robbery, executed sloppily. The poppers see this mockery and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet. Everyone got a gift, everyone got a light. They want you to forget that ish, cause they can't dim the bright. The positive vibration takes you past the sign shackles, from the sewers and the alleys into moving castles. Who these assholes really serving with an exposed Achilles surgeon around the corner lurking to prove Ascension Trump's perversion? Learn them to catch fish and unplug the signal. Show them the simpletons now build the fucking temples.